Hello and welcome everyone to this oral presentation on targeting at-risk alcohol use as part of a proactive automated lifestyle intervention in general hospital patients, investigation of need. The presenter will be Professor Janice Freyer-Adams. She's from the University Medicine Greifswald. And my name is Paul Mickey Carvalho. I will be your host today. And I would like you all to place your questions in the chat box, and we will be taking questions in the last 5 minutes. Thank you. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Paul, for introducing my topic and myself. And I will be sharing my screen with you now. Okay, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, all across the world. It's a pleasure to be speaking here about our current study, targeting at-risk alcohol use as part of a proactive automatized lifestyle intervention in general hospital patients, and particularly on the investigation of need. Well, I declare we have received funding from the German Cancer Aid, but there are no financial conflicts of interest. Well, yeah, the majority of chronic diseases or non-communicable diseases are preventable. And among modifiable causes, at-risk alcohol use and foremost smoking, insufficient physical activity and an unhealthy diet play a crucial role. For example, more than 60% of cancers could be preventive if we did not drink at risk, if we did not smoke, if we did, if we were physically active sufficiently, and if we did a healthy diet. And what is more, the more of these health risk factors occur in one person, the more or the higher the risk for mortality gets. And these risks do not add up. They even multiply at times, particularly when we talk about alcohol and smoking. And about 50% of the general population in Western countries report 2 or more health risk factors. So these health risk factors rarely occur by themselves. And scientific associations, of course, they, as we know, suggest that we should decrease these health risk factors on the populational level. And brief interventions in healthcare settings are, of course, one way to do so. However, what we know so far is that most of our brief alcohol interventions that we have developed, or smoking interventions, they usually ignore the existence of other health risk factors in our target population. So also the interventions that I have developed and evaluated in the past. So now the idea is to investigate how many health risk factors occur among general hospital patients. And what we know already is that the proportion of people with 2 or more health risk factors is particularly high among general hospital patients. And 66% of these report the co-occurrence of health risk factors. So we know the general hospital setting as a good way to approach at-risk users or patients in general with health risk factors. But we know little about the co-occurrence of health risk factors in at-risk users. So this might be even a larger proportion that needs comprehensive interventions. So, and the aim of the study was to determine the need for brief comprehensive interventions that do not only target at-risk use, but all the other health risk factors as well in general hospital patients with at-risk alcohol use. And we were also interested in looking at the existence of chronic diseases among at-risk users in general hospital, and at the accumulation of health risk factors, of course, and also what priority alcohol plays in the patients and as part of the whole concept of lifestyle and health risk factors that may occur in each of them. Yeah, the study that we used is a small survey among general hospital patients. Data was collected at one hospital in northeastern Germany on four departments. We recruited all 18 to 64-year-old patients over 10 weeks. They were approached systematically by study assistants, and we had to split the data collection or recruitment due to COVID-19, as a lot of us have. So the first part of recruitment was done before the before the second wave of COVID-19. And the second part of participants was recruited after the third wave. So, of course, this does have meaning for the composition of the sample, because during this time, fewer patients were being admitted to hospitals and only emergency cases were being admitted. Well, what measures did we use? We assessed at-risk alcohol use using the audit C and cutoff values of 4 and 5 for men and women. Any tobacco smoking was considered at-risk factor, either daily or occasional smoking. Physical inactivity was assessed using the short form of the International Physical Activity Questionnaire, asking for the amount of time spent on moderate and vigorous physical activity in a typical week. And those reporting less than 150 minutes of moderate or less than 75 minutes of vigorous physical activity were considered being physically inactive. Unhealthy diet was assessed using two different indicators. One was overweight, obtained by self-reported body height and weight, using the body mass index of 25 and higher. And low vegetable and fruit intake was assessed using one question, and those with less than 5 portions a day were considered to have an insufficient vegetable and fruit intake. We aimed for 250 participants, and we achieved a number of 256 participants. We did have 22 losses of data sets due to technical issues, and 25.5% of the patients reported at-risk alcohol use, and this was a number of 65. And on these 65 people, most of the data that I'm presenting here will be based on. So the at-risk drinkers were 48 years on average, 74% were male, and 23% had a highest level of school, and the mean audit C score was 6.1. And what we found was that almost 48% of the at-risk drinkers reported to have been diagnosed with any of the 4 major non-communicable diseases at any time in the past. So specifically, 22% reported cardiovascular disease, 19% reported cancer disease, 15% reported chronic respiratory disease, and 8% reported diabetes. And what we also found was that 46% of the at-risk drinkers reported smoking, 31% physical inactivity, 60% overweight, and 89% reported low vegetable and fruit intake. Well, these, as I said, the sample was small, so we did compare these data with data from a study that we conducted 10 years ago. And we did find larger proportions of smokers and of physically inactive people 10 years ago. While this could either reflect a decrease of these health risk factors, however, we also suppose methodological issues here because the sample composition was different. As I pointed out, we had fewer males proportionally and older participants in this new study. So this could actually explain the lower rate of smokers. And we also used a different physical activity questionnaire. This one that we used this time was more sophisticated and validated. So so I'm not quite sure whether it really reflects decreases in these health risk factors. So now coming to the accumulation of health risk factors. What we found was that on average, the at-risk users reported 1.4 to 1.7 additional health risk factors, depending on whether we used vegetable and fruit intake as indicator of unhealthy diet or overweight as an indicator of unhealthy diet. And also about 90% reported one or more other health risk factors, only varying a little by whether we used vegetable intake or overweight as an indicator of unhealthy diet. So now with all these health risk factors accumulated among at-risk drinkers, we were also interested in finding out what priority alcohol has. So we asked 2 questions about what part of your lifestyle may you be interested in receiving personal feedback. Please rank at least 2 of the topics and start with the one that you're most interested in. And we had physical activity, diet, alcohol use, and tobacco smoking as categories. And the second question, because we thought answers may be different, was what part of your lifestyle would you have to change to achieve the largest impact on your quality of life? And please rank at least 2 of the topics and start with the most important one. What we found was that alcohol was only rarely the first or second priority. 75% expected low or no impact on quality of life if alcohol use was changed, and 88% reported no interest or little interest in feedback. Well, these findings are a great chance for motivation enhancing brief interventions, I believe. So because as we found in previous study that I have talked about 2 years ago here at the Inebria, even in general hospital patients, of whom 75% are either not motivated to change or are ambivalent to change, such motivation enhancing interventions, whether they are delivered in person or digitally, they have the ability to, decrease alcohol use over 2 years and to improve measures of health over 2 years. So that's a great chance. The need is high for comprehensive interventions among at-risk users, with 90% reporting at least one other health risk factor. And in 1/2 of the target population, this systematic screening and brief intervention approach could actually, help improve the treatment for chronic diseases. And in the other half of patients, this comprehensive intervention could actually prevent the onset of diseases. So this is, I kind of look at it like this is one approach that catches 2 flies with 1 hit. So of course the study does have limitations, the small sample size, as I pointed out, also self-reported, but this is what brief interventions typically rely on. And also if underreporting was a problem here, then the need for comprehensive interventions would be even larger. So to conclude, brief interventions may have the chance to reach at-risk alcohol users by shifting the focus towards a more holistic supportive strategy. Also maybe by reducing the feeling of stigmatization, because not only one part of their lifestyle is being addressed, but the whole lifestyle is on focus. Okay, thank you so much, and I'll be happy to respond to questions.
Thank you, Professor G. We will be taking questions right now. Please put them in the chat box if you may. Participants, I hope you can hear me, but if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box. We will be taking questions for the next 5 minutes. So a hand is raised. I'm sorry, but for this session, we do not allow people to come onto the stage. If you have any questions, you can please put it in the chat box. And I would just like to reiterate for those who are new to this software, if you raise your hand, that means that you're asking to be called onto the stage, that is onto this broadcast. So that does not mean the same as raising your hand in Zoom. So if you have a question, please put it in the chat box. Professor, I think you can stop sharing your screen if you like.
Okay, yeah, thank you for letting me know. Great.
So it seems that you're oh yes, there's one question.
Great, thank you.
Let me just bring that onto the stage. Right then. Professor, would you like to go through the questions or would you like me to read it out?
Okay, the first one I saw was, I'm wondering which lifestyle factors did they express motivation to change? Yeah, it was particularly, changing unhealthy diet and physical activity. Yeah. So, well, this is a chance we could provide interventions or address, topics that they may be interested in, and at the same time also address the topics that we may feel they may need motivation enhancing interventions for as well. Yeah. Now that we are actually, I didn't point this out, but right now we are developing a digital intervention that is based on the theory of, on the trans-theoretical model of intentional behavior change. And we have used this model in our previous studies targeting at-risk alcohol use and smoking. And we're going to apply this model to the other health risk factors as well. And now what the problem is in the end is we have so many people that actually have 3 or more health risk factors. And we also need to kind of decide which of the factors to address, because targeting all 4 health risk factors and trying to motivate them on all 4 health risk factors may be too much. And we decided to use one of these questions, for particularly the one on the expected impact on quality of life, to have the patients decide one topic that they would like to receive feedback on for. But at the same time, if they have 3 or more or 2 or more health risk factors, we would also provide at least one other motivation enhancing tool as well. But this is very interesting, what to do with people that do not express interest in alcohol use, but in other health risk factors. But I think we have found a good way of deciding evidence-based plus patient choice-based. Yeah, I'm gonna find out how this works. The next question is, dealing with several risk factors in the same time may be difficult. Yeah, and this is what I was pointing out too. Setting question of priority of patients may be useful for motivation. Yeah, but also health priority should be taken into account. Yeah, this is what we do. Alcohol use and tobacco smoking have been decreased using this intervention module. So this is evidence-based. And if we do decide to provide interventions or modules to the patients, we would like them to receive at least one module of which we know it is effective in reducing alcohol use or tobacco smoking. So this is so in total, they would receive like a profile on how they do on all these health risk factors. This is like a feedback on their own lifestyle. And then we have motivation enhancing modules. And these will not address all 4 of the health risk factors if 4 are present. We have decided for 2. Whether this works well, we will find out. The last question that I see is, do you have any thoughts on the level of health literacy among the patients? Are they aware of lifestyle factors as modifier risk factors for their health? That's a good question. We did not assess this. I believe that they have some idea, but I do not think that they have the idea that the extent is so great. What we found with our previous studies on reducing alcohol use and reducing smoking is that the feedback was it was great to receive also information on at-risk alcohol use and the levels of low-risk drinking. And yeah, so we did not assess the knowledge, actually. Yeah, good idea, something to do.
Sorry, I'm afraid we are out of time. So that will be the last question. I would like to take this opportunity to apologize to Sarah Finn for not showing you all where the chat box is. But thank you for your questions, and thank you, Professor Janice Freya Adam. It was a lovely presentation. So yes, this is a wrapping up of our session. Thank you all for joining us. Please move to the next presentation session listed in the program. Thank you.
Thank you. See ya.